good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Well, welcome in. My name is Jesse. I'm here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And if you're joining us for the first time, like a lot of you are today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, literally yesterday, I got off the plane back from Peru on an epic adventure on a wooden tall ship. We've been featuring it at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And I was so excited to get back, even from such a cool thing, because today, we are kicking off our cross-Canada virtual road trips. This has been our signature series for several years now, in which we partner with the amazing folks at Parks Canada and the Royal Canadian Geographical Society to take you on a journey to some of Canada and the world's most special places. So this is day one. You guys are joining us for what should be an amazing show. I hope you've had the chance to check out that link below. Follow along with the whole series. There's so many more exciting things to come, and they're all going to be on our YouTube channel. So if you want to watch this one in 3 weeks, or 3 years, you can go right there, type it in, do just that. Lots of opportunity to keep the learning going. I will note today, I can speak English, that before we dive in, we are going to have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our question period, we're going to have a little 4-question quiz, test your understanding, have a little bit of fun, have bragging rights at the classroom. So if you want to join in with that on a separate tab, we'll be doing that in about 20-25 minutes. Lots of opportunity to have a little extra fun. Now today, I'm so excited to welcome in Eva Marie, and she is going to join us to talk to us about belugas in the St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence is an amazing river, one of the biggest rivers on planet Earth. And the first time we ever did this broadcast, it was the most watched program we've ever done in our 8-year history. You guys love whales and you love Canada, which is really, really cool. So a big welcome into our over 1,000 kids from across 6 provinces and like half of West Virginia. So welcome in, West Virginians. You guys are awesome. It's so nice to have you here as well. And without further ado, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn you over to Eva Marie to blow your minds about one of the coolest creatures and one of the coolest places on planet Earth. So welcome in. Nice to have you on the broadcast today.
Hi, nice to be here with all of you. So let's wait no further and go ahead with the presentation on beluga whales. So I'm very happy to be with you today. My name is Eve Marie and I work for Parks Canada at the Saguenay-St. Lawrence Marine Park. And in a couple minutes, I will present to you a very special species that live in the marine park, and it is the beluga whale, as you have all expected it. And for the teacher's information, the presentation will last about 20 minutes and there will be time for questions and a Kahoot afterwards. So without further ado, let's dive into the subject of the belugas. So before we get more into the subject of beluga whales, let's place the marine park on a larger scale. So here is a map of Canada with the Parks Canada network, and each dot on the map represents a place that Parks Canada protects and promotes. So there are national historic sites, national parks, and marine protected area, which are shown in blue on the map. So the Saguenay-St. Lawrence Marine Park, where I work, is a marine protected area, and it is indicated by a blue dot and circled in blue in the Quebec map. So the marine park is the dark blue area shown on the map. The marine park includes water and everything that lives in the water from the surface to the seafloor. So the marine park has fresh water coming in from the Great Lakes and the rivers. If some of you happen to live around the Great Lakes, we are connected by the water. And there is salt water coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. So the water found in the marine park is salty like the sea. I'm speaking to you today from Tadoussac, which is shown in the yellow star on the larger Quebec map. And it is a small village in the North Shore region of Quebec. And I am on the traditional territory of the Innu-Inuit First Nation on a land that they called Nitassinan. So the marine park is an incomparable place to live. Near Tadoussac, where I live, the water is salty and very cold, which promotes abundant and diversified marine life. There are hundreds and hundreds of species of fish, birds, marine invertebrates, and algae that live in the marine park. And it is also an important habitat for several species of marine mammals like the beluga whale. Out of all the species of whales and seals that visit the marine park, we decided to tell you about the only whale that spends its entire life in the St. Lawrence River, and it is the beluga. So the beluga whale is normally mostly found in the Arctic seas around the North Pole, which is shown by the dark blue spaces on the map. And the St. Lawrence beluga population lives in the circled area in red, where the water is almost as cold and salty as in northern seas. And it is also the southernmost population in the world. So it's the southernmost place where we can see beluga whales. So we're really lucky to be able to observe and study this northern whale here in the marine park in the heart of Quebec. So belugas kind of are similar to us in many, many ways. Because beluga whales live in groups and spend their entire lives feeding, traveling, learning, socializing, and resting in order to survive. So you'll see that the belugas have many of the same activities as we do because they are mammals just like us. Here is the first resemblance that I'll point out today that we have to beluga whales. So the very first thing that a human does after being born is breathing. And it's the same for beluga whales. So right after being born, baby belugas, that are also called calves, have to go to the water surface to take their first breath. So their mothers will help them to get their head out of the water by pushing them to the surface, as we see on this illustration here. Let me show you a quick video on the next slide that is showing beluga whales breathing. Play. So you may have noticed that there is water kind of spouting on the top of their heads. So this is called, okay, this is the right slide I wanted to be on. So beluga breathes through their nose, just like us, but their nose is a little different than ours. It is not located at the middle of their face. It's located at the top of their heads. So it is called a blowhole because that's where they blow the air out, and that's where actually they exhale and inhale the air once they go to the surface to breathe. So the only difference between us and beluga whales is you and I, we breathe without thinking about it. We do it naturally, but belugas have to think about breathing. So every 15 minutes, they have to go, okay, wait, I need to go get some air at the surface. So they go to the surface, they go at the top of the water 4 or 5 times, and then they dive back down. Let's take now a closer look at the beluga whale's anatomy, because you'll see that there are other there are differences and there are other similar aspects to the belugas as there is to us. So the belugas are about 5 meters long. To give you an idea of that size, 5 meters is about the length of 3 of you if you were stretching your arms out with your hands touching. Belugas have flippers that look a little bit like our hands. So if you see the grayish thing on the screen, those are the belugas' skeleton of their flippers. And it kind of look like the bones in our hands. And the belugas use their flippers to steer themselves in the water. Because belugas live in cold water of the Arctic seas and the St. Lawrence, they have a thick layer of fat under their skin to keep them warm. It's almost like they were always wearing a winter coat. You may also have noticed that belugas have a hump on their backs. It's called a dorsal ridge. So in the winter, they can use their ridge to break the ice in order to make a hole out of the ice to breathe at the surface. That's pretty cool. Belugas are also very easy to distinguish from other whales because they are white, and it's the only whale that we have that is white. Although there is something to note because beluga calves, so baby belugas, are light brown when they are born, and then they turn gray when they are adolescent before turning white when they become fully grown, mature adults. Their white coloring provides excellent camouflage amongst the ice when they come to the surface to breathe. It allows them to hide from their potential Arctic predators like the polar bears and the killer whales. But don't worry, the beluga has no predators in the St. Lawrence because polar bears and killer whales are pretty rare down here. Belugas have to communicate also like we do. So the belugas use their voices and ears to communicate with each other just like us. So to make sounds, beluga whales will let air out through their blowhole. This is a little bit complicated, so I'm going to slow down my pace a little bit. So the air passing through will make some tiny membranes in the blowhole area. They will make it vibrate. And these membranes are called phonic lips. And they work kind of like our vocal cords that we have in our throat that makes us able to do sounds. So belugas make a wide variety of sounds, including grunts, whistles, mooing, and clicking. We're not sure what every sound is specifically for, but it's clear that they use these sounds to communicate with one another. Would you believe me if I told you that belugas can sing? Let me just change the slide. I'll let you hear, I'll explain to you how it works, and then I'll let you hear some beluga whale vocalizing. So just to give you an example, last summer I was sailing on the St. Lawrence River on an evening, and when we stopped in the middle of the river, I could hear the belugas in the distance. It was pretty magical. And also when I was observing beluga whales from the shore to study them, I could often hear them. Of course, I could hear their breaths as they surfaced to breathe, but I could also hear the very high-pitched sounds that sounded like bird sings, or sound that sounded like cows mooing or even burping. So let me play you what beluga whale sounds can sound like. It's amazing, isn't it? And we can hear that from the surface of the water. It almost sounds like birdsong. And that's why belugas are often compared to canaries. I don't know how to pronounce that in English, but canaries of the sea. That's how they are often called. So the way belugas communicate between one another works like echo. So echoes happen when you speak in an empty room, for instance, and you can hear your voice reflected at you shortly afterwards. Echo can also happen when you shout hello in a valley, and then you hear your hello back a little while later, as if the mountain was answering you. Well, that is echo. So that's how beluga whales communicate. But in the water, sound travels 4 times faster than in air, and it travels a lot farther too. It even sounds louder. Have you ever noticed how well you can hear sounds when you put your head under the water in your bath or at a pool, for instance? So beluga whales use the echo phenomenon to know where they are in the water, to look for food, and to locate other belugas. It is called echolocation. So location because they locate themselves and they use echo to do so. They use an organ on their forehead called a melon to transmit ultrasounds. So their melon will emit sounds, and when the sound will hit the prey, for instance, the sound will be reflected back to the beluga whale, and then the beluga whale will be able to analyze what's in front of him. Is it a boat? Is it prey? Is it a predator? Or anything else? They will use their brain to estimate the time reflected to come back to them and calculate the distance between them and the fish. So thanks to the echo, belugas know where fish, other belugas, the river bottom, the surface, and other boats are. So even though there is plenty of food in the marine park, belugas cannot simply open their mouths and wait for fish to come to them. They need to use effort, energy, and strategy to locate, chase, and catch their prey, like capelin, which is a small fish that belugas eat a lot, and that is shown on the PowerPoint. It is possible sometimes, if you look at belugas from the surface, it's sometimes possible to see them feeding or hunt for food. So for instance, if you see 4 or 5 beluga whales swimming in the same direction and then suddenly change direction, they might be chasing prey, like on this screenshot that was taken in a video that we have. It's beluga whales chasing after a bunch of fish, and it's really, really particular to look at. So belugas mostly feed on very small fish such as capelin, herring. They feed on eels as well, and some marine invertebrates. And even though beluga whales have teeth, they don't chew their food like we do. They swallow it whole. Earlier, I told you that the marine park is an ideal place for beluga whales to live, but some things in their habitat can still harm them. Boats in the beluga habitat can disrupt their activities, for instance. So a kayak or a sailboat, even if a kayak and a sailboat doesn't have an engine that is noisy, that is loud, the simple presence of a kayak or a sailboat within a few meters of a beluga whale can distract them and interrupt the beluga's daily activities. So by spending time with the beluga whales is taking time off of its daily activities that are essential to its survival. Also, because belugas mainly use sounds to find their way around, if there is noise in their habitat, it can quickly affect their ability to communicate. So the sound of a boat engine, for instance, can interfere with the beluga's communication and feeding, among other things. When the environment is very noisy, belugas have a hard time communicating, and you can compare it to a very noisy room. It's difficult for us to hear the person talking to us when there's too much noise around, and it's the same for belugas. Let me play you a sound, if I'm able to find my mouse. Okay, I'll play you the sound of a boat in the water. It's pretty loud, isn't it? If you recall earlier, I made you listen to beluga whale sounds. So if you were to put your head underwater in the St. Lawrence, you could hear the sounds of belugas and the sounds of boats. So let me play you what that would sound like. It gets pretty loud, doesn't it? So that's why it's very, very important for belugas to have quiet places to go, places without boats and without noise. So this way they can communicate, hunt, and socialize without being disrupted. So there are there we go. Okay, there are two different areas in the marine park that have been entirely protected to reduce the level of noise in the beluga whale's habitat. The first area is the upper estuary, which is framed at the bottom of the image. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but the upper estuary is at the bottom of the image. So this part of the marine park is off limits for whale watching cruises, which greatly reduces the number of boats and the noise level. The other part of the park that is protected is the St. Margaret Bay. So it's framed in red on the map, a little higher and the smaller square. And it's a very special place located in the Saguenay Fjord. And the Bay St. Marguerite is used by female beluga whales to give birth, learn to teach their calves how to socialize, how to hunt, how to rest. And that's where it's kind of like the daycare area. So that's where the females and the calves spend their entire summers. And so they also rest there, they play and they socialize. And for 5 years now, no boats have been allowed to enter the St. Marguerite Bay during the summer. And this is one of the ways to protect the belugas and give them somewhere quiet to go. So in the daycare area, there are no boats and no traffic, so they are at peace. Because resting is another essential activity for beluga whales. You've probably already figured out that in order to rest, belugas need somewhere quiet to sleep just like us. it's much easier to sleep somewhere quiet than in the middle of a crowd speaking, for instance. So when they rest, belugas cannot fall asleep in a deep sleep like we do because they would forget to breathe. And because of this, they need to stay half awake. So let me explain that. When belugas rest, only half of their brain goes to sleep to rest, while the other half of the brain stays alert to think about surfacing and breathing. The two halves of the brain take turns in resting like this for as long as they're sleeping. Belugas can sleep for around 7 to 8 hours a day, a little bit like humans. Unfortunately for us, when belugas have to sleep, they will stay at the surface of the water and do a behavior that we call logging because they stay at the surface of the water like a wood log. So when they are at the surface, we can see them for a longer time. So that's really, really cool. Resting places for beluga whales are the same places that are important for raising and teaching their young. And a bit like us, young belugas need adults to teach them what they need to do to live. So young belugas are raised through social groups. And belugas are gregarious animals, which means that they live in groups. And being numerous helps with communication, teaching behaviors, hunting, and protecting themselves from predators. Here are a couple examples of behaviors that are observed in belugas and that we can also see when we do beluga whale watching. In this image, you see a beluga whale with its head above the surface. And this behavior is called spy hopping because it looks like the beluga is observing what's happening above the surface, like a spy. And remember that belugas are Arctic animals, and they normally live in an environment surrounded by ice. So it's possible that this behavior is made for sticking their head out of the hole in the ice in order to check what is happening in its habitat around it to see if it's safe to surface and to breathe. Another behavior that can be observed is a newborn calf being nursed. So as you see on this image, you can see on the left, like the beluga, mostly on the left, there is a calf nursing on the female. So belugas are mammals, just like us, and newborns drink their mother's milk as their food source, just like humans. However, the beluga's milk contains much more fat than human breast milk. The milk is very, very nutritious and helps the calves grow faster. And young belugas can start feeding on prey only when they're about 2 years old. So for 2 whole years at the beginning of their lives, they exclusively feed on their mother's milk. The marine park is a critical habitat for the beluga, and protecting the beluga whale habitat also protects the habitat of many other species. Many humans, about 1 million people, visit the marine park every year. And there are people from here and around the world that come here to visit and admire landscapes and see marine animals. And amongst these people, many of them go whale watching on boats, others go out on the water on kayaks, sailboats, their own motorboats. So in short, there's a lot of boat traffic in the marine park, which means there's a lot of boat traffic in the beluga habitat. So that is why there are some areas that are closed to the beluga, not to the beluga. Some areas are closed to boats in order for belugas to have quiet spaces. So the St. Lawrence beluga population is endangered, unfortunately, and that is why so many protection measures are taken to protect it. So for instance, in the marine park, there you go. For instance, in the marine park, some areas have been protected to ensure a quiet place for belugas, but also boat speeds in the marine park are limited, and the distance between the boats and the beluga whales on the water are restricted as well. So boats must keep a 400-meter distance from beluga whales in order not to disturb them. 400 meters is the equivalent of 30 school buses lined up one after another. Keeping safe distances with wildlife applies to all wildlife. So we must always remember that when we see a wild animal, be it a bear, a moose, or a whale, we are the ones in their habitat, in their home, and our mere presence can stress the animal and distract them from their vital activities. So it is very, very important when you see wildlife to keep your distances from them. During the presentation, did you notice that a lot of the beluga's daily activities resembles our daily activities? I said it before and I will say it again. Belugas need to feed, they need to learn, they need to communicate, they need to play and rest just like us. Speaking of that and of safe measures in order to help the belugas survival, the best way to observe beluga whales in the marine park is from land. We are very, very fortunate to be able to spot the whales from the shore. And there are several locations on the shore in the marine park that are known for whale watching. So this way we can observe the belugas from as close as they come to the shore without even disturbing them. It happens very, very, very often in the summer. When I'm just taking a walk next to the St. Lawrence River, we can see beluga whales at a mere 2 or 3 meters distance from us. So that's really, really awesome. So as I said, we protect the marine park for belugas, but also all the other species that live in the marine park. There are about 2,000 different animal species that live in the marine park. So that's very, 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 very impressive. And so by protecting the beluga's habitat, we also protect thousands of other species of bird, fish, whales, and marine invertebrates. So this is what concludes my presentation. I'll be ready for the questions and the Kahoot period. But just before we get Jessie back on the presentation, I just wanted to encourage you to stay curious about nature and wildlife and keep learning about them always. And maybe someday you'll be able to work for an environmental organization or for Parks Canada, just like me, and promote and protect beautiful places like the marine park. And I really hope you tell your parents tonight that the marine park is so awesome and you have to come and visit it because it is truly an amazing place. So back to you, Jessie.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for such an incredible journey and such a special part of the world. We do have a teacher in our chat, Ms. Cork, who's been there and talked about how amazing it is. So kudos to you joining us in Stratford today, and hopefully everyone gets the chance to go. I flew over the St. Lawrence just yesterday. I've seen belugas up in Churchill, Manitoba, and I can tell you I've been very lucky to have a lot of amazing animal experiences in my life, but being in a boat surrounded by beluga whales is like might be the absolute most incredible thing I've ever had the chance to do. Those calls that you got the chance to hear in the presentation, it's just pure magic. So hopefully everyone gets a chance. New vacation spot, skip Florida, head to Nattersack this year.
Yeah.
Diving with our Kahoot, like Eva Marie said. And then we're going to go to Miss Craig's class first for questions. YouTubers, you guys have been sharing a lot as well. So I'm going to take as many as I can over our next 15 minutes. So for those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And don't worry, there's no need to win. We just love that you're participating. And if you do win, what you win is our everlasting respect. So Eva Marie and I we're just totally amazed by your efforts. We are going to dive in right now with this. And then Miss Craig's class, we're coming to you first in our question period. All right. And if you want to get hints, Eva Marie, when we're in the final few seconds of each of these, by all means, in the right direction. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay. Number 1. How long does a beluga live? What do we think? Is it, well, the options are coming slowly. 13 years like dogs, 25 years like horses, 60 to 80 years like humans, or 200 years like sea turtles? What do we think?
I didn't mention it, but I did mention throughout the presentation that belugas are a lot alike as humans.
And that is your hint du jour with 1 second to go. 63 of you in. Most of you got this right. Very good. 25 years. They're all good guesses, guys. Animals have really widely varying lifespans. A lot of whale species tend to be in that human range, and some of them quite a bit older than that. So great job. Let's see what that does to our leaderboard. First place right now is Lucky Pelican. I hope someone named Beluga wins. That would be my favorite. That's happened twice ever where the name fits the animal. All right. What color are belugas at birth? Are they white, brown, blue, or yellow? I was really tempted to show a picture with a baby beluga, but I chose not to mess with you. That's my goal. Yeah, making it a little harder.
I mentioned it really, really quickly.
Who is listening? Oh, there's over 80 of you. Holy, there's so many people. 100 Cahooters almost. Jeez. Brown, yes. So those who are listening, white is a really good guess. A lot of creatures look the same young and when they turn adult, but nope, they have a little bit of a different color. I encourage you to look up baby belugas. They're really cool looking. All right, what does that do? Lucky Pelican keeps our lead. Big margin over cute orcs. Okay. Oh, that's exciting. All right, question 3. True or false? The beluga is a predator that can be dangerous to humans. I found the most sinister looking picture of a beluga that I could find for this one, where it's like coming out of the blackness, leering over you. Don't let that bias you necessarily. Just saying that the case. 79. Get those answers in 5 more seconds. Go, go, go. Oh, you guys are amazing. This is such a fun Kahoot today. 100. Yes. False. 31 of you were afraid of belugas, and you didn't need to be. They're not coming for you. In fact, no whale species injure people.
But I will add though that I was saying earlier that it's important to keep distances from any wild animal, even though they are not predators known to attack humans. They are wild animals, so their behavior can be unpredictable. So it's always safer to stay far away from them.
Always safer for them, for you, for everything else. But I promise you, a beluga will never come and savage your leg. That will not happen. You're safe. You're good. All right. Our leaderboard, Lucky Pelican keeps the lead going into question 4, our final question. Drum roll, please. Bum, 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 bum. True or false? Belugas sleep at the bottom of the water. We explicitly covered this. Who was listening? There was a word we used for what belugas are like. What was it? Was it stones? Are they stoning at the bottom of the seafloor? No, I don't think so.
Maybe they are.
Maybe it's something else, like a tree, perhaps. What do trees do when they go in the water? They float because they're near the top. So yes, it is false. They sleep at the top of the water. It's important that they need to breathe, and they need to turn part of their brain off at the same time. Some of you sometimes in class might turn off half your brain, but ideally not. Stay involved at all times. Let's see our final tally, and then we're going to head for our questions, as many as I can take in our next 50 minutes. Dynamic Badger is third, who's inexplicably a rainbow unicorn. Dandy Puffin, second. And first, for all the marbles, I'm guessing it's our wire-to-wire winner. It is Lucky Pelican. Way to go. That does not happen very often, so kudos to you. And if you are Lucky Pelican, let us know who you are. We'd love to hear from you. All right, let's head to Miss Craig's class. You guys are right at the camera. I love it. Well, unmute your mic. Hi.
Hi.
Say hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Get nice and loud.
My name is Alexia, and I'm asking how many beluga whales are there in the world?
Ooh,
In the world, that's a very good question. I think the number for in the world is about 10,000 or 15,000. In the St. Lawrence River, though, it's about 1,500 to 2,000. There's a margin. But around the world, I think it's about 10 or 15,000.
Yeah, that's the number that jumps out to me when I was looking this up in advance, because we always get the number question, but I can find it very, very specifically for our classes as we go through the Q&A.
Awesome.
We are going to head to Miss Abel's class at Bayside Public School, who have a camera now, which is so exciting. Hi, grade 3s. Welcome in. Hello. Come on in for a question.
I wanted to ask a question. Can they eat fruit?
Ooh, can they eat fruit?
Eat fruit?
Yeah.
It is not their first preferred food of choice. They will eat fish mostly, but I'm guessing if there was a fruit floating at the top of the water, they might eat it, but it is not in their habits to eat fruit.
I think you need to check out our broadcast from earlier today about orangutans who love fruits. That was our fruit broadcast. Now we're on a fish one, so we've split off today. But I love that crew. Way to go, guys. So nice to see you. Miss Mustard's class, Tribune Drive Public School, come on in and take us away.
There we go. When you went on sailing, did you disturb the whales?
When you do what? Did you disturb the whales?
Could you repeat your question?
When you went out sailing, did you disturb the whales?
Great question.
No. We were really, really far away from the whales. When I was sailing, it is mandatory for everybody to stay very far away from the whales when they are sailing at least 400 meters. But I did, when we stopped in the middle of the water, we can hear them from a great distance. So we were at least at 1 kilometer away from them, and we could still hear them. So no, I never, ever go in the water and disturb whales.
That's really important. I'm so glad that you kids are concerned about that sort of thing. Way to go. You guys are great environmental stewards, as always, at your age. You guys are awesome. Miss Coburn's class, I'm going to check. If you want to flick on your mic, we can see if it works. I know it was iffy before. Let's see.
I know, I'm really hard, huh? So anyway, my kids are remote. They're in their homes, and we're excited. We do this all the time. We love it. Some of my students are in grade 8 heading into high school. So our big question for you is, what kind of credentials or what kind of experience did you do in high school to get to the job where you are now?
So for us in Quebec, I think high school is a little different than everywhere else. But I didn't take any science or anything in high school, and then I did my bachelor's in university in geography, which requires a little science, but I did it a little later afterwards. But it's mostly my student jobs that got me to this position now. I started as a student at Parks Canada in 2017, and I really, really, really encourage to anybody that has an interest in environment or public outreach or interpretation and stuff like that to look up the student jobs at Parks Canada. They're awesome. I met a bunch of cool people too. And 7 years later, here I am in the position that I have now.
What a fantastic story. And you hit up on two things that I really want to harp on for our kids. Student jobs, like if you're keen on something, go ask and see if you can help. It's amazing how often people will say yes to that, and then you end up with the coolest careers in the world. And second, and I promise they're not paying me to say this, Parks Canada employees are like the happiest people you will ever meet. I do this series every year. We've never had anyone that isn't just like over the moon with their job. So in Canada, we're really lucky to have an amazing park system. Check it out. If you want to work for them in a wide variety of roles, it could be a really, really cool option. All right, Anne-Marie, we're going to take a rapid fire round from some YouTube classes, and then we're going to try and do a whole other round with our live groups. So let's join in this journey together. Mr. Riatter's class, Priory Park Public School, welcome in Guelph, which is where Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants got its start. And they want to know, why are beluga whales white? What's the deal?
So it's an evolution thing. So they are white because they're Arctic animals, and by their natural evolution, I think the whitest individual probably got to reproduce more because they are the ones that survived in Arctic seas because of predators. So they, being white, they can hide better from predators because they live in amongst the ice and stuff like that. So I'd say it's an evolutionary thing in order to protect from predators.
Yes, that's a very tricky question. So thank you for fielding that on the fly in the middle of the broadcast. Ms. Tamash's class, joining us in Alaska. Welcome in a place that you might even get belugas not too far from where you are. Yeah. How do you find belugas in the wild? Are you like scanning? What's the deal?
So I only know about the belugas here for sighting them here in the St. Lawrence River, and they're easy to spot because they are white. Sometimes people mix them up with waves though, but sure. So for here in the St. Lawrence River, it's really just you sit on the shore of the water, you look out at the landscape, and if you see a little white bubble popping out of the water, it's a beluga whale. But here in Quebec, it's very particular to be able to spot them from the shore because other places in the world, in the Arctic seas where belugas are, they often stay a little further from shore. So if you want to see them, you got to come to Tadoussac.
Exactly. Get out there. Get on a boat. I will say in Churchill, literally the final 2,000 feet that the plane was coming down, you can see them from the plane. Like they're bright white. They stand out in the water like nobody's business. So they're a really, really cool creature that way. We're going to take a few more. I'm going to try and get every single individual class on YouTube. And then Miss Craig, we're coming back to you. We might go a little long because we're rebels together. Miss Cork's class, they wanted to know, do belugas stay with a family group their whole lives?
As they stay with the group as long as they, I don't know how to formulate that, but just until they become adults. Yeah. But they don't specifically stay with their mothers. And sometimes if a mother dies, for instance, some other female beluga whales can adopt calves that are left behind by their mothers. So they don't stay specifically with their families, but they always stay in the same groups.
Yes. Perfect. I think that covers every possible version of that question. All right, Miss Chase's class, why is it the belugas sing? Miss Deeves, I'm coming to you next, and then we'll do our live groups. We're going along. It's great.
They sing to communicate with each other. So they don't actually sing like we whistle in the shower because we got a song in mind. We say that they sing, but they actually make sounds to communicate with each other for essential things like predators, hunting, raising the young ones, swimming together in pods. So they don't see really well, so they need to communicate in order to see and hear. Yeah.
Just like we're a visual-based creature, they're an auditory-based creature. So sound is their world. It's a really cool way to communicate and keep the groups together. So great question, guys. All right, last one from YouTube. I know we could go all day with these, but are there belugas in other countries from Miss Deves' class?
Absolutely. Well, the United States, because like in Alaska, I'm thinking it is possible to see beluga whales. So Canada, countries in Scandinavia like Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia, and the US. So those are the main countries where we can see beluga whales. So all the northern countries.
All the northern countries. A lot of Arctic researchers will actually go to a lot of different places in all those places to see creatures in different habitats and situations. So
yeah, Greenland also. Yeah.
All right, we're going to go back to all our live classes. 4 questions before we wrap up. Stick around and we'll say a big thank you at the end. Miss Craig's class, come on in. Hey.
My name is Benjamin, and what are the beluga whales' predators?
Hey, Benjamin.
In the St. Lawrence River, where I work and where I live, they have no predators. The only menace in their habitat is the noise. But in the Arctic seas, killer whales or orcas and polar bears are their main predators.
As much as we're all super fans of belugas during this beluga program, I will say that polar bears hunting belugas is still one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in a natural history documentary ever. We don't want the belugas to go. The Quebec ones are fine. There's no polar bears down there. Great question, guys. Bayside, coming to you. Unmute your mic. Hey.
How fast can they go?
I don't know if you guys go in kilometers or miles. I don't know if you're in Canada or in the US, but so in kilometers an hour, they go like maximum 15 kilometers an hour. So that's you can go that fast on your bike, for instance.
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic. If I ever do want to race a beluga on the shore, I can get a bike and just do exactly that. I might try that later after the broadcast. Miss Mustard, I'm heading to you, and then Miss Coburn will wrap up with you in a second. Come on in, Miss Mustard. Hey.
All right, these guys are all very excited because we were the lucky pelican in the Kahoot, so they're still celebrating.
Good job.
All right, question from you, then.
So my question is that how do beluga whales know what other beluga whales are saying?
Ooh.
That's a good question. They don't talk like we do with words. But I'm guessing that different frequencies, different types of sounds. So I don't know if you remember in the recording, there were clicking, mooing, some sounds that were really higher pitch and some that were lower pitch. So I'm guessing that all of these different types of sounds and pitch and frequencies are how they know what the other ones are saying. And all the sounds have a specific meaning that are used in specific scenarios.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing too, is that kids, honestly, like the research into how other animals communicate, it's still really in its infancy. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what whales and parrots and other creatures are saying when they talk. It's one of the coolest fields of inquiry in the world because we know so little and there's so much to explore and discover. And we spent so much time trying to find like alien intelligent life. And there's so much intelligent life right here on Earth that we haven't really invested the time to understand more fully what they're saying. We know with certain birds that they have very clear calls for very certain things, and we're starting to do that research on whales. So you guys could literally become a Parks Canada scientist that explores and learns exactly that question if you're keen in the future. Very cool. Miss Coburn's class, if you guys want to come in with one final one before we wrap up, I will note before I bring you in our virtual road trip. Check out the link. I'll send this to all your teachers. We'd love to have you for more. This will be on YouTube too, so lots more to explore when you're done. But let's wrap up with one final question. Hey, welcome in.
It's interesting that you spoke about music. Have you ever heard of anybody putting together the sounds of the sea, the sounds of all of the, the animal in there? Like, have you?
I haven't, but honestly, here in just like in a kilometer radius in the water, there are 4 different, I don't know if that's the word in English, but hydrophones.
Yeah.
so hydrophones that have been put out to record like boat sounds and interference between boat sounds and whale sounds. But maybe eventually there are a lot of artists out here, so maybe eventually that could be something really interesting to do.
One of my favorite things I've ever heard in outreach is sounds of your park. So it's literally recordings done in marine areas, in parks all over the world. The coolest one to me is Northern Australia, which sounds like dinosaurs should be in it. But you can look that up and look up all sorts of places all around the world, including a ton in Canada, and hear what the landscape sounds like. It's like a magical thing. Everybody should do it. It's super, super neat.
Awesome.
Anyway, before we wrap up and bring in our classes to say a big thank you and farewell, is there any final messages about belugas that you'd like to share with us before we say goodbye?
Just that they're really, really neat, but also very, very fragile. So learn about them, come and see them, tell your friends about them, and remember also that wherever you live, whether it's Alaska or Virginia or Manitoba or BC or New Brunswick, there are so many actions in your daily life that you can take in order to protect marine species, marine mammals, like reducing your plastic consumption, not wasting water, and just learning about them and being more aware of all the species around you. So I think that would be my final message.
There's no better message than that. Thank you so much for your passion and expertise today. This was the perfect kickoff to our Cross Canada virtual road trip. And as we do that, wrap up every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our classes to say a big thank you and farewell. So Miss Craig's class, Bayside Public School, Miss Mustard's crew, Miss Carver, thank you so much, everybody.